Hey guys, don't forget the 2023 Street Cop Training Conference, Nashville, Tennessee, April 23rd through the 28th. You do not want to miss this. So far, guest speakers, Rob O'Neill, the Navy SEAL that was responsible for killing Osama bin Laden, Kyle Carpenter, U.S. Marine, Medal of Honor recipient, jumping on an IED to protect his platoon. Fox News host Tommy Lahren returns for 2023. Sheriff Wayne Ivey, Sheriff Mark Lamb, Sheriff David Clark, and more to come. You don't want to miss this event. We additionally have 20 of the country's top law enforcement educators giving you the best experience of your life. You will leave this event knowing more about your job and how to be proficient at the things you do, hands down, in any other event that you'll ever attend. I personally guarantee it. Don't miss out. There's a room code at streetcop.com for our room block, and room code at the Gaylord at Opry is where the event's taking place. Don't miss out on a discounted rate. The rate is from Sunday to Thursday. Put that in and find yourselves at a half-price room. Split it with a friend, but make sure you get there. You don't want to miss this event. It is going to be that good. If you trust me and you trust Street Cop, trust that you will leave there feeling like you've had an experience of a lifetime.
111, 110.
You training to be a street cop?
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Street Cop Training Podcast. Your host, founder, and CEO of Street Cop Training. It's a real pleasure to have Tim Kennedy on the show today. You guys are going to find a lot of value in it. Tim is really one of the most impressive human beings on the planet, and it's no secret. He has some naysayers and some people who like to sling mud his way, but he is a phenomenal and impressive human being. It wouldn't take you too far on the internet to figure out how great of a person he is, and he's just a pleasure to be around. Just so people know, last year at the conference, he spent hours and hours and hours taking pictures with people and signing autographs and meeting everybody until there was no line left. There was 1,000 people who were standing in line to meet him. And by the time it was over, it was it. It was just me and Tim hanging out there. He was like, all right, I think we got everybody. That's the kind of guy he was. He wasn't compensated for that either. He did that at the kindness of his heart. And he's just one of those people. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode of the podcast with Tim Kennedy. When did you start discovering your entrepreneurial mindset? Or I wouldn't say mindset because that's so fucking typical. I think more like the deep thinking associated with entrepreneurship, because I'm firm in my heart when I say this, you must be a very deep thinker. Deep thinker.
Yeah. Hairy-handed, hairy-legged, but deep thinker. My wife would fully disagree with you. I fell in love with the idea of being sovereign, being able to be able to do. Everybody in America talks about freedom. And freedom's cool. Sovereignty is powerful. Mm-hmm. Sovereignty as an individual is where nobody can say anything about what you do because they have no control over you. If I work for someone, they have control over me. If a government organization controls what I can put in my body or how I travel, depending on what I comply or don't comply with, they have control over me. Sovereignty is I get my own food, I get my own water, I get my own power, I make my own money, I own this building, I own this dirt. You guys can fuck off. I'm going to do what I believe to be right because I have sovereignty. So I'm never fighting for freedom. I'm fighting for sovereignty. And I know it's a subtle distinction, but I want Americans and I want law enforcement and I want the barrel-chested freedom fighter and the mom driving the Suburban for them to understand that sovereignty is the beautiful thing. I am going to be able to make the decisions for my family, for my children, because that's what's best for them and nobody else gets a say in it.
One of the hardest things for people to do, what they don't realize, is making a statement like that and then standing your ground on that statement, because you're going to be dealing with some naysayers. People are going to question. I actually thought about this morning. I said to myself, how absurd is it that take a guy like Tim, right? I'm brushing up my Tim Kennedy, spending time into the stuff you've done. I'm like, this is fucking amazing. The whole time thinking about people still have something negative to say about you here and there. And how the fuck do they have any right to do that one bit? But that comes with the territory, right? It just comes with the territory of being somebody who's steadfast, well-grounded, and doing their own thing.
It's sad that we're in an era that comes that it comes with the territory, like to put yourself out there and to take a position and take a stand. One of the ones that blows my mind is, people will make this ignorant accusation that I don't support the Second Amendment. I was on a podcast with Lance Armstrong, and my mission in the conversation with Lance Armstrong was to bring him to the table to talk about freedom. And if I used language that I, as a Second Amendment, gun owning, firearms instructing, war fighting, Green Beret sniper, if I use the language that I'm the vernacular that I'm familiar with, the conversation's over with him. The shall not be infringed, that sentence, I now have no rapport and no ability. So I made a whole bunch of concessions in the languages and the words that I used, because my mission was to bring him and his audience to the table to talk about the values and the beautiful, fulfilling, rich life that is fully, it is truly the most beautiful life, the sovereign life. And, but then people are like, oh, well, the language that you used, like you said that, bleh, and it is sad. I pity those people because they're so naive and they're so small-minded that they can't even see the big picture of what we're trying to do in bringing people to the table to become beautiful Americans again.
Dude, I have this theory, right? So, and it helps with everything. I firmly believe now, 41 years on this planet, that 95% of people, I'll even give some good margin for error, 90% of people are completely insane and with a sprinkle and a dash of complete idiocy. So when I see something, I go, you know what? This is one of those 90s. It's one of these 95s. I know who these fuckers are.
Yeah.
And if you could just I'm sitting around the dinner table sometimes. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I know these people personally as well. This is interesting. Yeah, I know who these motherfuckers are. Right? Why did you say anything at dinner? There's nothing to talk about. I have nothing for what? I'm going to exhaust my energy. I got 1 year. These people are anti-gun. Next year, they want to know about how do they get trained on how to use guns. What are we talking about? Is why I don't talk.
Yeah, the discourse, real discourse, is an art that's been lost on this generation. Where now I set my beliefs, however those beliefs came to be, whether I was reading biased articles or watching whatever media that influenced my position and my opinion. Ultimately, I developed these opinions. Then I curated a silo, an echo chamber, where I only listen to people that align with my own values, that repeat the same ideas. And my ideas become more steadfast and more solidified in who I am as a person, but they're less and less accurate because they're less frequently meeting friction, or they're meeting contest, or they're meeting discourse, because I've curated and I've editorialized all of the things that might disagree with my idea or my beliefs. So now I believe my beliefs more, but at no point have my beliefs ever met any conflict. And the point of the most beautiful thing about our Constitution and that First Amendment is that freedom of speech part, where we get to take ideas that are not aligned and they get to fight each other on an open forum in a town square. And the better idea is going to rise to the top. And we're living in an era where that isn't happening. And it's really dangerous, because that means that the bad idea that a bunch of people believe because they live in an echo chamber, and the other ideas have been censored or have been have been labeled misinformation just because they weren't aligned with the echo chamber, that the silo they were existing in. And that's why I won't stop talking. That's why I want to talk to people that don't agree with me. Beto O'Rourke here in Texas is running for governor, and he wanted to come to an event here, a veterans event. And I asked that if he was going to come here, if I could have 5 minutes with him. No cameras, no gotcha moments. I just want to talk to a guy that said, hell yeah, I'm going to take your AR-15s. Hell yeah, I'm going to take your AK-47s. Yes, I'm going to raise taxes. No, I'm not going to have sovereign borders that are going to prevent illegal immigrants at the border. Like those are things that he said, okay, walk me through it. You're born in El Paso. You're a businessman. You're working for the city. I want to understand your view. I want to understand the why. Maybe there is some merit to his ideas. I know there's not, but I want to hear his perspective.
Sure.
And the only way that he can ever change his mind is if his ideas are met with better ideas. And he has to step out of that echo chamber with his aides and his assistants and his campaign manager, him being retweeted and shared by every single Instagram person that's contributing donations to his campaign, where, Governor Abbott's sitting here with the most prosperous state in the whole entire union. And he's like, there's a reason we're the most successful state in the union. It's because of policy.
Right.
And so then I want to sit across from somebody and understand. Tell me, okay, go ahead and hit me with it. Tell me how and why. Okay, that makes no sense. So let me explain to you what this other viewpoint looks like, But if that conversation never happens, he just stays in that echo chamber.
I deal with this in some sense of this exists in law enforcement as well. And before I go off the tangent, we go into the law enforcement space now at this point. I deal with this. And I tell people, I go, it's just wild that there are people trying to close gates and prevent and block. And we know for a fact that the training that we provide saves lives. I mean, it comes down to, on top of everything else that we do, less litigation, more convictions, all this, less evidence suppression, all this stuff. But we know we have proof, tangible proof that we've saved lives. We have over 20 people that have said, I decided not to take my life directly to me because something you said. So it's nuts to me that, and this, I guess, leads to my point, we get to this crossroads where these people who are trying to stop essentially what they want, quote unquote, which is full of shit, that they want to stop this from happening. And I've realized that they don't want the police better trained. They don't want the police at all. And the problem is there's no willingness to listen. That's why there's no progression. I said this, I was on Tommy Laren's show last week, and she asked me, what do you think the issue is? And I said, we are ready to sit down and have the conversation. The problem is the other side's not willing to sit down and hear us. But we also, in same token, need to hear them as well and try to work together to come to a resolution. And there are some people who've stepped up and done this and tried it, but it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And I'll get cops to say to me, well, when do you think the public will have support or will support the police again? And, I hate to sound so morbid, but the only time I've ever seen cops being hoisted up on shoulders and paraded around was post 9/11. Right after that, cop couldn't do anything wrong. And, because we saw what they were truly capable of, who they were as human beings and the sacrifice they made, that they're willing to do right now, just not having given them an opportunity at that such grand scale. But anyway.
You're right. But I think communities post the fraud and embezzlement scheme that was Black Lives Matter, and post Antifa civil unrest, post the defund the police movement, every single one of those organizations and political party members that were screaming that at the top of their lungs are now backtracking as fast as they can because their cities are in shambles. Mm-hmm. Homicides are breaking in every single city that defunded the police is seeing unprecedented rises of crime, to include Austin, the city I'm sitting in right now. We had a huge defund the police. I think we cut a third of the budget, and we had to take a whole bunch of special teams that addressed very specific, no, I don't want to use a broadsword to address a big problem. I want to use a scalpel so I can be precise. We took the scalpel away. Now we only have broadswords. And the byproduct, the ripple and second and third order effects of these very ineffective policies was rise of crime, of slow response times, of more people dying, more crimes being committed. And so I think communities, and I know voters are being like, I see what happens when these policies are enacted. I see what happens when we defund the police. And one of the many reasons why I think there is a big wave of support coming for law enforcement is because of the byproduct of what happens when law enforcement is not present.
I think it's important to tell everybody that, you have some history with law enforcement. Your father, your brothers, right? I think you as well. Give us a little context to that.
Yeah, I grew up in a law enforcement household. I went to the police academy at 21, the day I was eligible to attend. Graduated, 9/11 happened, went off and fought for a long time, came back to law enforcement, working in a variety of different ways, being a deputy, supporting on the training side, supporting the academy, a bunch of different arrest and control. So like I've been in this world my whole entire life. My dad was, a narcotics officer for my developing years, and, in a wife beater with a crappy beard, go out and try to buy meth. Watching my brother be on gang task forces, then going to bomb school, becoming an FBI bomb tech. I've got to see the full spectrum of, and also being a young, impressionable college student when a serial killer in California, in San Luis Obispo, California, is tracking down young women and raping and murdering them, and watching basic police work be the thing that goes and finds him. No rad Silence of the Lambs moment where, she reverse engineers forensic psychology and tracks down the bad guy. Like, this is gumshoe, beating the bush, walking the path. Police work was able to track down Rex Krebs, and find him and prevent a whole bunch more women from being murdered. Seeing that whole spectrum from the fancy SWAT, plain clothes, buying pallets of cocaine from Pablo Escobar, to like basic police work saves lives, and knowing the full sliding scale between how important every single one of those things are. I've been so blessed to see all of that, and also traveling abroad, working with the DEA, working with the ATF, going to Afghanistan with law enforcement officials that are trying to prevent, heroin from coming into the United States, and going down to Colombia and working with, the FBI, and working in Trinidad, stopping people from smuggling drugs across our little shore. It's been rad to see law enforcement in so many different ways. It's been part of my life, my whole life.
Same thing. I had no father was a cop. Wanted to be a cop since I fucking now. I got on the job when I was 19. So this is all I've known, and I've known the good and the bad and all the things in between. And I think that you probably are motivated in the same way that I'm motivated. Of like, as I'm thinking about things and looking how fucked up things are, even before things appeared fucked up, I know how fucked up things are. I'm saying to myself, I think I can fix this. I think I could fucking fix some of this shit. But unfortunately, well, I was not a sovereign. I wasn't allowed to help fix it. I wasn't chosen and given the blessing. So I had to choose myself and show up and say, you know what? I have some thoughts and ideas. I can tell you, a lot of mudslinging my way, a lot of rocks coming my fucking direction still to this day. But I think people really get the message now of what we're trying to do. And same thing. I know why you're showing up to teach these men and women, right? I know why you're showing up. I get that everybody, listen, we're businesses, we procure revenue. There's no secret about that. There's a reason why that has to happen. I can deep dive into that, but I know why you're showing up every single time. Same reason I'm showing up. So you're motivated. You know that these guys are getting deficient training. They just are. And we see it clearly. And I say this all the time. If you think that swinging a stick at a bag and screaming get back for fucking 25 hours in academy, a stick that you'll never use, where your friend will never hold a stick again in your life, and yelling this cadence over and over again that is training, you're sadly mistaken. And fortunately enough, we're actually seeing progression now, because guys like you are showing up and saying, guys, this is never going to work.
Yeah, but training is. We actually just did a completely unscripted, unprepared. I took some random people. We brought a car into the building. We did some attempted kidnapping, some civil arrest, a passenger attack situation, and we armed some people. We put markers as knives where you could see where the cuts happened. The armed with a weapon, a knife, a gun, man, woman, 50 pounds over, powerful athlete, all of those factors, the thing that became the clearest and the thing that became the best determination of who is going to survive and increase in survivability in the performance of this little experiment was training. It was the only thing across the board. The more a person trained, the more frequently a person trained, more often the person trained, the more trained the person was, the better that person performed, period. With a weapon, without a weapon, with a gun, with a knife, male, it didn't matter. The only thing was training. They did things that they had never trained to do before. But because they trained, they were able to draw from this pool, from this reservoir of experience and from knowledge. And even though they're in uncomfortable situations, as I wrapped a seatbelt around their neck and I was trying to loop choke them, they're able to get a knife out of their pocket and mark my arm up. Like, awesome, sustain. Like, how did you do that? I was able to slide my arm up in here the same way I defend a rear naked choke to get the seatbelt off my neck. And then I was able to free this hand, which I then just started marking you up with it. I was like, well, this is fantastic. And the only thing was training. And it is a superpower. That suffering and that pain that you put yourself, that discipline and that regiment that you voluntarily put yourself through, even if your department doesn't pay for it, even if you don't have the time to do it, you have to make the decision to do it because you don't know when you're going to need it. And one of the soft truths, one of the special operations truths is that you cannot prepare for a crisis after the crisis has already occurred. You have to prepare for it beforehand, obviously. The only way they can prepare for it is via training. So freaking train. I just train. Go and train right now. Go train.
Sometimes we get people in our classrooms and I'm going to talk a few different things, but I'll say to these people in this room, I get that everybody wants to learn how to do interdiction, wants to know case law, wants to know how to get real powerful here. I said, but I think you all should be well-rounded. I think you should be at shooting courses. I think you should be at Brazilian jiu-jitsu courses, mixed martial arts. Even if you don't love those things, that's all part of it as well. And the same thing goes for the guys who are on the mats nonstop and who are on the pistol ranges nonstop. I got guys who can hit a fucking quarter at 100 yards with an AR and can't tell me what Terry v. Ohio is. So it's the same thing. If you want to be a great cop, a well-rounded cop is a great cop. And then you get to your specialties, but having that intrinsic knowledge. You'll meet these guys and women who are in this profession who are known as the elitists, the best. But if you talk to them, they can do any fucking job in the profession. Yeah. Dude, they can go to patrol, back to patrol. They have to be in an interdiction or canine and be a fucking savage. They're just the same. So take notes from these folks. You see the girl fighting that Chicago cop. You see her
judo throw.
What'd you think
that's some basic judo footwork. And she's fighting a male, and she's dunking on this dude. It was so clear. And her head comes up. She's making radio calls in the middle of the fight.
Yeah.
And these are basic things, but true mastery is when you can do things and make it look easy. Mm-hmm. But the only way that you can do things and make it look easy is through repetitions and training. And one of the best byproducts that you get from training is grace and humility. We don't have those incendiary civil unrest moments when you have somebody that can demonstrate grace and humility. When I know I have the ability, I have the technique, I have the training that I can take the George Floyd and I can cuff him effortlessly and get him in the back of the police car and get him out of there and not ever have these moments. And the way that you overcome that is with training and maybe even able to just diffuse it in the first place because I have the humility and the grace of being a well-trained person that I don't have anything to prove here. I'm here to be a contributor, to be a selfless servant to my community. And then all the positive effects that are the ripple out from that.
Did you see the other video? I don't know if you follow us on Instagram, but one of the guys here in Jersey was at a Wawa, and the dude comes out. He literally just flips this dude over. It's almost like a ballet. He's got this dude in cuffs who's fighting him in about 11 seconds. Both cuffed, completely submitted. And he wrote to us. He's like, bro, I go to all your training. I love you guys. I go, no, I know you are. He goes, that was me in that video. He goes, I train nonstop. It was flawless. I mean, do you see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fucking legit.
And that's what it's supposed to be like.
Right.
And I get frustrated, and I will hold law enforcement to a higher standard. And I know it's unfair, but you volunteered to do this. So you don't get to have the donut. I'm sorry. You don't get to have the cigarettes. You don't get to go to the weekly poker nights because that time should be spent on the mats. That time should be spent on the range. That time should be spent in a language or cultural education class. Every one of those moments is going to make you better prepared to deal with that unknown situation in the future. So like you gave that time up, man. I'm sorry. Like you still have to be a good functioning human. So you have to be a good husband. You have to be a good father. You have to be a good community member. You have to go to, you have to attend whatever service that you go to for whatever religion you participate in, whatever you need to be a good human so that you can go and be a good contributor to your community.
What do you say to somebody who on a Tuesday hears Tim Kennedy say this, gets fucking motivated, and on Thursday is binge watching Netflix and eating Cheez-Its? Like, where is that motivation? How does, we get guys, they come to my classes. I go, if you want to know case law, here is a book. It's $90. It'll change your life. You'll have a different career. And I get the fucking notes going, right? Like everybody's like writing notes. Like, what's the name of that book again? And then I think to myself, nobody's going to buy this fucking thing. Nobody's going to buy it. In the moment, it sounded great. Yeah. So where's that discipline level of, okay, you heard it. You're motivated at this moment. You realize how fucking dangerous this job is. And it's dangerous. What did you say somebody 3 days from now?
Yeah, I mean, you said the word. You said it. You said discipline. It's not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Like that it's emotion. It's an emotional feeling. I can listen to a Jocko Willink, episode. I'm like, yeah, get up at 4:30 tomorrow. But the thing that lasts is the regimen. It's the discipline. It's the purpose. It's the why that we are here. And I am so disciplined. Like, if you under right now, you're gonna see it blocked off in these 15-minute increments. And every single one of those things is strategically selected in optimizing how much influence and positive effects I can have in the worlds that I'm working in. And there's a workout every day. I'm on the range every single week. I'm working on the areas that I'm deficient in, the areas that I don't want to train in. In the military, we say we train for the fight we know we're going to have, not for the fight that we want to have. Man, I would have loved to have been in Aurora when that asswipe walked into the Batman movie theater and decided to shoot everybody, right? I wish I was sitting in Uvalde when that prick crashes his car in the parking lot and runs inside with a rifle. Like, those are the fights that I want to have. Like the fights that we're gonna have is, the 5150, the dude that's like all hopped up on whatever drugs after he just abused his wife. It's not going to be that beautiful serial killer that we just randomly pop out of the bushes in front of us on a run. That'd be rad. Not going to happen. Never happens. It's going to be a domestic violence call, or a civil unrest downtown. Like, did you prepare for those moments? No? Oh, cool. Good luck working on it.
Dude, assets and liabilities, right? If you're not an asset, you're a liability. And you hear this thing like, where do you want to get hurt? In a controlled setting and getting ready, or you want to get hurt later on in an uncontrolled setting because you haven't prepared one bit?
Yeah. The more you sweat, the less you bleed. And the more you sweat, the less fat you are. And I see a lot of fat people in some occupations where there should be no fatness. So the only way that you bleed less is to sweat more. And that means you got to go and train.
Dude, I every time I go to eat junk, I hear Tim Kennedy from my conference go, I only eat clean. And I remember you coming down the hallway and I was eating a fucking, like, we were starving, dude. We had no food.
You're having a bagel.
Dude, no, I was having a cheese Danish.
Yeah.
But bro, I was fucking starving, dude. Like, we were in a food oasis there. They shut everything down. It was just right after the pandemic. There was nothing to eat. And I'm like, fuck, dude. And, it got ahead of me. Like, I have to eat something. And I think about that because I'm significantly more disciplined. I'm like, man, if Tim could see me now.
Yeah.
If Tim could see that I don't do this anymore.
Yeah. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And I eat. I'm a 220-pound hairy mesomorph. It's not like I'm out there eating like a rabbit. Like, I eat, but I eat food that can fill my gas tank so I can go and do more work. And it is so fulfilling. The food tastes that much better. The sex is that much better. The time on the mats is that much better. The time on the range is that much better. I'm able to stay up later. I'm able to read more. I'm able to learn more. And so then I just eat some more and go and do it again.
What is something new you've embarked upon recently that's really kind of been a little bit of a game changer?
Man, so I have moved in the past year into a humanitarian space. So after Afghanistan, when Save Our Allies, actually the shirt I'm wearing right now, when we formed to address the failed evacuation out of Afghanistan, like, babies are dying in concertina wire, women are being executed on the hoods of cars, you watch people falling from wheel wells and landing gear of C-17s taking off. In response to that, I have dove headfirst into this humanitarian world. And it's an evil world with evil people that try to monetize off of the suffering of other people in these moments of crisis. So I have found some really great people, and I have learned a lot about how evil a world we're in.
I often think about a lot of things, and I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts to be had, and I almost would even hold myself accountable for even living with some comforts when other people have no comforts at all. There's a guilt associated with that. But at the same time, if I hadn't done what I've done now or doing what I'm doing, I probably wouldn't be able to help the people that I have helped. So I know the story. I know what you've done. I know that you're not looking for somebody to give you accolades and dabs, but there are a lot of people in the world who know what you've done, believe me. And I'm sure that they're very appreciative, and it has to do with your calling. You know what I mean? Like, and I can relate to it. I'm not comparing myself to you. I'm saying it doesn't have to be every day and apparent that you've done something great. But don't kid yourself one bit. I don't think you do one bit. That, boy, ignore the noise, focus on it. And you are doing the perfect example of that. Dude, did my thing that I ever made you make it to your house or hung up anywhere?
Yeah, that's in our office.
Sweet, dude. Appreciate it. That's awesome. I put a lot of thought into that.
Dude, it's amazing. It's also beautiful. So thank you. But yeah, it's when you walk in the Sheepdog Response front door and you walk towards the mat, it's on the wall on the right.
Bro, I sat in my office for like 5 hours writing those. I wrote them for every keynote that we had, and just had to shift into I didn't even do mescaline or anything like that. It just came to me. I started sitting there and just looking at things and reading things. And it also started to come out. And I'm like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is good. Because it came from my heart. But anyway, what do you want to promote today, dude? I know that you have a lot of stuff that you want to push. Push it all.
Man, the train. First and foremost, there's so many great organizations out there. Fieldcraft Survival, SOB Tactical, the Sheriff of Baghdad, John McPhee. Go and train. If you're not in jiu-jitsu, you need to be. There's no excuse. It is a superpower. If you ever have to use your hands to control a person and you don't know jiu-jitsu, I just pity you. When I say it's a superpower, you think about this. There's 7 billion people on this planet. There are 6.999 billion people that I can walk up to, and I can do anything I want to this person, and this person can't stop me. Mm-hmm. That's what a superpower looks like. And that superpower is accessible to every single law enforcement person on the planet. You just go and start training. And then be free. Find your way to be sovereign. Be a good parent and work.
Sheepdog Response, right? Sheepdog, you got Sheepdog, you got Tim Kennedy on Instagram. You doing the TikTok thing?
Nah. I have it because I have teenage daughters and a couple of girls that are in college. So I'm on there, but just to be a creep.
Well, dude, actually, it's crazy, man. I mean, we now have people coming to classes, and I'm like, how'd you guys find out about us? They're like, I follow your TikTok. I'm like, do you follow anything else? They're like, no, you're fucking TikTok, dude.
That's
so
awesome.
For us, we use it as a tool, and we use it to educate. I mean, we do some silly shit on it, but nothing crazy. And people are very quick to, especially in the law enforcement community, like, oh, these TikTok cops. Well, yeah, some of them are a little eccentric. I know what they're doing it for. We're actually using it to push our agenda of like, here's more knowledge. You guys should know this stuff, right? We're going to show you a guy who knows how to use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and what he looks like when he's actually trained. This is why we're pushing continued training. And on behalf of the law enforcement community, it's no secret. Thank you. And I don't want to take up any more of your time. And you're the fucking man, dude.
Dude, I appreciate you. Thanks for everything you do. You keep on hammering.
Trying, brother. I'm trying.
All
right, dude. Guys, if you're in an area where you're trying to get to our classes, but we're not close to you, fret not. We actually have on-demand training at Stirikeforce.com. You can take that course online right now, and then you could attend that training in the future at no additional cost. You can redeem your voucher, so you get 2 for the price of 1. We don't want to deny you the ability to take this training now, especially knowing that it can keep you safe, at a very minimum, putting bad guys in jail where they belong, and at the maximum, going home to your family. Check out Stirikeforce.com for that offer.